Hi, this video is about crossover and it's for the people who either have applied to crossover in the past and weren't able to get in, or for those who are planning to apply in the near future. So I personally have worked with crossover for about 4 years in two different roles, and I've gotten a total of I think 4 job offers in this time span. So each and everything that I will be talking about in this video, I've added sections for that in the video, and I will also add timestamps in the description. So you can see if you have any particular specific questions that you want answered, you can just jump right to that section. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is, well, not we, I am going to talk about is my own experience with crossover. So the very first job that I got with crossover was for 60K. That was L2 tech support role. And I've worked in that for about a year and maybe 1 or 2 months on top of that. And the second role was for 100K. That was for managing the pre-sales for the EMEA and the Asian Pacific region at GFI. And I've worked in that for about 2.5 years, roughly, I think. And yeah, the next thing that I want to talk about is what exactly is crossover. So when you apply to crossover, you're not actually going to work at crossover. Crossover is basically more like a recruitment team, you could say, a recruitment unit within the main business unit that they basically have. So it's like a group of companies, multiple different business units, and all of them hire and manage their payrolls through crossover. So that's the only thing that crossover facilitates. So for example, if you land a job at crossover, you'll be working at one of the companies that hire through them, and you will be getting your salaries through crossover. Basically, that's pretty much all that crossover is involved in, besides of course, the hiring part. So I'm going to share some of the questions that I've got over the years from many different people, and I'll just share or try to answer the ones which I get most frequently. The very first one is, what exactly is the hiring process like? So for this one, you can for sure keep watching this video, but the best way is to basically go directly to the source. If you go to Crossover's website, I'm pretty sure that they have very well explained their process. But if you still prefer to get that over video, I'll just go through that quickly. So the very first thing that you have to do for any role is you have to go through a basic fit test. So that's like usually 3 to 7 questions that they ask, which are MCQ based questions. And you can do that in like 20 seconds basically. And as soon as you submit that, you get a response within like 30 to 60 seconds. So that's like an automated thing. It would have questions like, do you have X amount of years of experience in this particular industry or this particular domain? Have you worked in this particular segment or not? Something like that. And based on that, there's like an automated score that is calculated to see if you pass like the minimum bar to be able to go to the next steps for the role, basically. So this, you could think of this as sort of that, what's that system that companies nowadays have for filtering out CVs and resumes? I forgot the name. Yeah, but anyways, it just does automatic screening. So it does not look at your CV, resume, or anything else of that. So at this point, you don't really need that. The second step is basically something which is required for all the roles, right? So you might apply it to 10, 20, 50 different roles at crossover in a time span of 4 or 5 years or 1 year or whatever time duration. So there's two kind of tests beyond this point. One is a type where you just do it once for one role, and then for the other roles you don't have to repeat those things. And the second category is the tests or which you have to do for each role. So there's the cognitive aptitude test, there's also the English proficiency test, and then there's the generative AI test. So you have to take these once, and then if you clear them in the future, maybe for example 1 month down the lane or 2 months or a year down the lane, if you come back to apply for a different role, you don't have to retake these exams. So it's like a badge that you collect if you've done IELTS or SATs, for example. You would know that they have like some sort of an expiry date or a validity date till which the test scores are valid, and you can reuse them basically. So it's sort of like that. You do them once and then that's it. The same score applies to all the other applications. And once you clear that part, these three, this trifecta of exams, then the next one is real work assessments. And they are very specific to the job that you applied for. So for example, if you applied for a sales job, it would be assessments which relate to that particular role. If you apply to a marketing or let's say a coding related job opening, then in that case, it's going to be like maybe a programming test or an engineering deliverables management, depending on if you're applying for a senior position, some test of that sort basically. And usually it has 1 to 3 real work assessments, which can take anywhere from 45 minutes to about 2 hours each. And they're also by the way badges. So for example, if you are a software engineer and you're applying to software engineering jobs, then in that case, let's say you take a coding exam, which they have, and it might be required for L1 software engineer as well as L2 software engineer, and maybe also the VP of engineering role. So if you do it once and let's say you get a 99th percentile, if you're applying to all 3 of the roles, you just take that test once, that's it. And you can reuse that badge. That badge appears on your profile. And yeah, so I've not seen more than 3 real work assessments for any of the roles for as long as I browsed the portal basically when I was applying. So there's that. And then once you clear those parts, if you've crossed all of these things, then the final part is that the person that should actually be working under, that is basically going to be your manager, your VP, your SCP, or whoever you'll be working under, they're going to review all the submissions that you made, your percentiles on each of those things, and maybe your CV as well. And if they like the profile and they see that you've done good work on the real work assessments, then in that scenario, you get called for an interview. You give the interview. If you clear that, that's pretty much it. You get the job offer. And actually, there's one last step, which is you have to take the proctored version of the cognitive aptitude test, which I mentioned initially. The cognitive aptitude test, the very first time that you give it, it's not proctored. So like no one's watching you. There's no check and balance. You can open a new tab, and you could have 3 friends alongside you. You could be using a calculator. Tons of different ways that you could be cheating that, or you might have a window open with ChatGPT and maybe try to get that to answer those questions. So the very final stage, once you have the offer and you accept that, you have to basically select a date before your joining date when you'll be giving a proctored version of that test. So that's basically Crossover's way of confirming that the person that we're hiring is the person that actually took that test and not a friend of that person or something like that. So that's more or less the hiring process. I will go deeper into a few of these sections because those are ones where I got majority of the questions from. So one of them is the cognitive aptitude test, and the other one is the interview part. So I'll talk about the interview part and then we'll move on to the next stage. So what exactly is the interview like? It's going to be like any other interview that you face in any other company. So it's nothing unique, or there's no playbook that's followed or something of that sort. So if you're applying for a sales role or a marketing role, exactly the kind of questions that you would expect in that role from any other company. So you could just go to YouTube for that, or go to Google, search for frequently asked questions, prepare for those kind of things, the general interview preparation. So it's basically useless if I go into the details of how to give a good interview, how to nail Crossover's interview when it's like the same as every other interview. So much better if you look for deeper resources in that particular area. But one advice from my side, it's simply just to try to orchestrate the interview. That's like a general interview advice. And what I mean by that is have a very close look at the job description, because that's like a sneak peek into the mind of the person who's going to make the final call of whether you're going to get hired or not. They're basically mentioning their requirements, the soft ones as well as the hard ones. So you can get an understanding of what kind of pain are they likely facing in their team right now, right? And what kind of things are likely going to be important to them. And then try to see if you can list down your key strengths as well as your weaknesses. So, and then try to anticipate the kind of questions that you're going to get. And if you have your strengths written down and at the back of your mind, you can basically steer the conversation in that direction to basically highlight your strengths. And at the same time, if a question comes which you feel that, the direction is heading towards some of your weaknesses, then you can sort of navigate it to a different direction or something else of that sort. So yeah, just I mean, in my personal opinion, in when it comes to sales calls or when it comes to interviews, 90% of the preparation is actually done before that happens. So 90% of the decision is more or less made before that call happens, because it's all in more or less a preparation. If you've done good preparation, if you know what to expect or what to anticipate, and have a few good answers for the very first 2 or 3 questions that you're going to get asked, it builds a good momentum throughout the interview. And then even if there's like a curveball that's thrown in your direction, you're in a much better, I would say, morale to be able to take care of that in a confident way, basically. So in the interview, in both the cases, actually in all 4 the cases, I was told right at the end of the interview that we're going to make you the offer. And then in one case, it was like 2 minutes after the interview ended, I got the email that you got the offer. In one case, it was, I think, half an hour later. And I think in another one, it was the person that I gave the interview to. He told me in the interview at the end that, I'm going to send the offer, but then the offer did not come through. And after like a week, they dropped me an email asking that, are you still available or something of that sort. And I'd already taken one of the other offers that it got from Crossover by that time. So it really depends on both these things. Actually, this is an important point, and that's about, I think, 3 or 4 people have asked me this in the last 4 years, which is that they've cleared all the rounds in terms of assessments, but they haven't gotten the interview call and it still shows as processing or under review or something of that sort. So this really highly depends on the availability of the hiring manager. Basically, that's the person that you actually would be working for ultimately. That's basically going to be the manager of the team that you're going to be in. Could be a VP, could be an SVP. And if they have a busy week, then maybe there's going to be a delay in reviewing the application or scheduling the interview or something of that sort. So that can vary depending on the individual's availability. So yeah, just wait it out basically. Not much that can be done in the meantime. And yeah, so that's more or less about the hiring process. And one key question that I've gotten over the years, another one that I get frequently, is the work environment. So I'm going to give my candid opinion on that.